This is worth talking about. Is Heresy going well? Are you having fun? And what are the general opinions of Heresy right now? Before this episode launched, we obviously had Revenant, and things were getting pretty bleak. We saw a population dip in trials in a way that we've never seen before since the launch of this entire game. It was honestly looking like the beginning of the end, and everyone likes to say a Destiny 2 is dying, but now that Heresy is here and doing pretty well, Datto made a video he's talking about, so Heresy is good so far, right? We're happy? So I figured we'd watch it together, and let's see what we got going on here.
Episode 3, I haven't given pretty much any thoughts on it just yet until now. I did say that I thought this was going to be the best of the 3 episodes, as historically the final season in an expansion cycle tends to be pretty highly reviewed. I was waiting until the end of Act 1 before I gave any thoughts, just to see where we would end up story-wise. Just felt like a good place to chat about stuff. There will be story spoilers coming up next, so if you want to dodge those, I would skip forward a bit. Story. Yeah, gotta say, did not see Eris dying in the first few minutes of episode 3 starting. I knew that we were going to be dealing with the main hive characters and story.
Honestly, the story is really good for Heresy. I was enjoying where it was going, and the ending was good. Obviously, having to wait for Act 2 can be a little exhausting, but the ending was exciting. I'm interested to see what Act 2 brings to the story.
Storyline that have become the leads over the past couple of years, and I thought that Eris was going to be featured in some way, and she certainly was. Drifter's performance during all of this has been really, really good.
Eris. No. Mundus.
Although he has currently left us high and dry as of the end of Act 1, but I suspect he will return at some point. Really interested to see more of Eris and her position right now in the story, in hopefully Act 2, but who really knows?
Yeah, that's really interesting, where she's like in the Ascendant realm. Like, what can she do in there, like how is she able to come back? I guess I'm sure she probably does come back. I guess it could go either way.
We've gotten a bit of a family meetup with the Memory of Oryx, Xivu Arath, and Savathun, with part 3 of Act 1, with the Memory of Oryx saying the equivalent of like, oh, you just killed me? That's dope. Like, you're my successor. It was a very fun moment in the game. In addition to the end of the post-dungeon quest revealing that Rolk had many goodies in his ship, including the tool that Oryx used to write the Tablets of Ruin, which has Savathun very not pleased. So far, I have been enjoying what's happening, but these are the top shelf characters in the game, which certainly helps a lot of the enjoyment. An unfortunate part of the episode so far has been the loss of many voice lines, specifically by
God, the voice lines. The voice lines almost ruin the story. Like, you can still follow what's happening, and it still is really good story, but man, the voice lines and the lack of is it's tough, But we understand, obviously, the strikes and stuff, but
and Xivu Arath, which has made the experience less than ideal as a sag after a Union strike continues. Xivu's presence in the finale of Act 1 was very sorely missed, as her voice has a pretty significant presence whenever it's heard.
I rise from the deep.
Yeah, they are saying like a crazy line here. I guess the Sloan.
What the?
And Xivu, yeah, brother, like Xivu's like screaming something. We don't even hear it. Oh man.
Man, this will be hitting so much harder. Hopefully that'll be
so much better
resolved at some point, but yeah, just very unfortunate that it, had to be this way. Also, I don't really mind going back to this 1 beat per week cadence for the story, but I've said before that I don't really care how Bungie wanted to distribute this content. The feedback feels like it's been pretty 50-50 between do it all at once and space it all out, and it doesn't really seem like there's a right answer to this. The main activity of this episode is the Nether, aka exploring the Dreadnought. There are 4 sections that we can explore, basically exactly how we left them in D1 with a couple of small exceptions, with different encounters to complete in each section. Complete 3 in a section to get a loot drop for a total of 3 sections and you are done. This place is supposed to resemble more of a roguelike or roguelite experience. You got health and ammo pickups and then upgrades to collect both big and small, to name a couple. I was worried about some things like loot and encounter design and the health regen, so you know, like the whole thing. I was mainly worried about the community reaction to the health regen situation in there, because a lot of people just don't have the experience of having to play your life in this game. Death is pretty meaningless in most other parts of the game, and Bungie significantly dampened the healing effects of everything in the game in the Dreadnought, because otherwise you would just be able to heal everything and then there's no tension. I expected a lot of pushback, to the point where...
Well, they did say that was a bug. Like, wasn't meant to be tuned this far initially. I mean, now where it's at, I think it's in a better place because half the abilities were bugged. So hopefully he mentions that part, but I think that where it's at now is actually fine. Where it was initially was obviously kind of hardcore, but...
Where I thought Bungie was just going to fold and make it much easier, and thankfully they have not. They did a quick patch that fixed some broken stuff, both in terms of nerfing the good and buffing the bad, and I haven't heard too much complaining about it since, I don't think.
Yeah.
Broken stuff included things that should have been healing, actually now properly healing, and things that were healing too much or completely bypassing the healing block being fixed up. I haven't experienced too much of an issue with this lack of healing, but you can absolutely afford to die a couple of times. It's not going to kill your run. It's just nice to actually care about playing your life a little bit more, or rather, there being penalties for not playing your life a bit more. Encounter design was something that I was worried about pretty early on. Encounter design here is on par with the average activity that we get. Collect the things, dunk the balls, kill the things, got it. Within the first day, I wasn't too sure how much I was going to want to run this activity, but it has grown on me, and I can't pinpoint exactly why, although a part of it is the loot chase. It is nice to be able to just kind of go at your own pace. You're not being shoved along at a super fast rate. There are little exploratory breathers to take here and there. You don't need to blitz into the next encounter or section. And after getting to play on X...
That actually is a really good point, which is being able to take a breather in between section to section makes it just not feel rushed and can be nice. You can kind of like have a nice chill break in between each one or whatever it is you want to do. The cadence of the Nether is honestly perfect because of that.
Expert, the gameplay portion is a bit more satisfying too, like actually having to try here and there. It kind of feels like what a patrol type experience should be like. Maybe not exactly down to this system, but being able to roam around a space like this and there actually being threats and encounters and good loot, it's kind of nice. Each run doesn't outstay its welcome either. You're looking around 30-35 minutes on Expert, going at a pretty leisurely pace. I know I've had critiques about Onslaught being too long and having these slow periods in between waves, which seems very counter to what I just said. But with Onslaught, I want a higher octane experience where it's just go, go, go. Whereas with the Nether, I think the stop and go nature works a little bit smoother, but also the fact that you don't need to commit 1 full hour in order to run this place. One thing that I think is a miss is the whole you're gonna die unless you shoot 3 blights like thing that happens. Right now, it is basically, hey, go waste a minute of your life doing this. And you know, I see the vision behind it. It's supposed to be this urgent thing that you got to deal with in the middle of a run. Like, conceptually, I'm into it. But how it ended up being implemented in-game is just not very fun. It's not very satisfying. And if it left, I think there would be literally 0 impact on the experience whatsoever. And then, of course, we have loot, and by extension, crafting. I advocated for Bungie to bring back seasonal crafting after the response from episode 2, despite the fact that I liked the idea of dialing back crafting. Episode 3 does not have seasonal weapon crafting, and I thought there was going to be a full-blown mutiny. This is because I anticipated that loot was going to be distributed in a very similar way as Episode 2. But the Nether drops so much friggin' loot that I think it is somewhat made up for no crafting. There are so many chests to go collect in a run that can and will drop loot.
Yeah, the absence of crafting is fine for me, considering you're just getting so many rolls. I think that the chase for god rolls can be kind of fun too, as long as you're actually constantly getting rolls. It doesn't feel as punishing.
Tome of Want is significantly less annoying to participate with, which drops loot very frequently. We have double perk weapons, we have rare adept weapons showing up, and we have the very rare shiny adept weapons for people to go chase if they really want that, which is all great. I got more double perk weapons in my first day of Episode 3 than all of Episode 2 combined, which is also great, and I think it's a good middle ground for the average player with the whole crafting thing. Most people are going to be happy with a double perk weapon that has the stuff that they want, while the Giga Grinders out there can keep hunting for adepts or shiny adepts. Everyone's got something to chase.
Now, the negative to this, I wonder, is what will the population look like towards the end of Heresy, right? Now that the loot is dropping plentifully, people are able to go into the Nether and get what they want. I wonder if a month from now, 2 months from now, it's looking pretty bleak population-wise. We'll see.
Sandbox.
And that doesn't affect the Nether, it just affects the game as a whole.
Wise. Bungie's gotten a bunch of wins here too. The new arc aspects are super strong, really enjoyable to use. Bolt Charge, I think, is a PvE success. PvP is another story.
Yeah, PvP, it needs to be nerfed. It's too powerful, especially the playstyle of hiding behind a half wall. Not the most ambitious playstyle, but in PvE, it's a home run, so much fun. And it just adds to the sandbox and the meta in a way that's cool. Like, it makes everyone want to use it. And I understand if it probably gets nerfed because it's a little overtuned and it helps it balance with the current sandbox, but at least for now, it's a lot of fun.
Bungie also juiced up destabilizing rounds to actually compete with Incandescent and the various jolt-inducing perks, which is great. Some solid exotic buffs and adjustments, perk buffs, new perks. There's a lot of stuff to play around with. They even announced that the exotic class glaives, which were bugged and usable by any class, are going to stay in that state. So any class can use any other class's glaive, although Bungie does want them to perform the best on their actual class, which is even more room for people to play around with. We also
That is cool. I like that. And I think it was not just the glaives, but the swords as well. I'd have to double check that, though.
had a more old school exotic mission pop up in Barrow Dyad, or rather that's the name of the SMG, which seems like we'll be upgrading over the course of the episode with Act 2 rebooting this quest. I enjoyed this mission experience. I wasn't expecting something like this to drop this early in the episode. And my feedback for the exotic missions that we've been getting lately is that they unfortunately never get to really go past their absolute basics because they have to be playable and beatable by everyone. But this one, again, had more of an old school approach to it, which I enjoyed, and it wasn't directly attached to the main story chain, so it didn't need to abide by those rules, even if it wasn't super difficult or anything like that. The dungeon isn't technically part of the episode, but I'm going to recap some thoughts here. Anyway, I enjoyed the contest experience, but after running this place several more times, I think Vesper's Host is going to continue to be my favorite dungeon. The first encounter can just be a bit tedious, although things do pick up later on in the dungeon. And also, the solo experience is definitely not nearly as bad as Vesper's. So that's good for people looking for a bit of a break from the growing intensity of that experience. I don't mind that this one will be not as bad as Vesper's. I could use a little breather myself. If I'm being completely honest, I'm just kind of happy that the community seems to be somewhat happy about this episode. Like, my current state is, if you're happy, I'm happy. Although I am definitely enjoying the episode as it is. It's not like I'm having a bad time or anything. My emotional bandwidth is just a lot smaller than the average person. Like, I don't get as happy, but I don't get as upset about things. So I try to see the good parts of the game whenever I can. But I think community consensus has been something along the lines of, Well, it's better than episode 2. And if that means that people are happy for the
It's better than episode 2 right now. We'll see. I think that overall it will be better than episode 2 by the end of it, especially with the trial. Like, trial stuff is good. They didn't even mention the trials were actually in the video. There's actually a good amount of stuff that wasn't mentioned, but
first time in a little while, then I will absolutely take that. It has been refreshing to engage in some conversations in a positive manner for what feels like the first time in several months. Eventually, it's all going to slow down, which is fine. Usually the beginning of an episode season is the busiest, but that's fine. Player counts on Steam, they're up right now. Hooray. That'll eventually wane as well. That's fine.
Yeah.
I'm going to enjoy the game for what it's offering right now, and when it slows down, I'll take my time after.
all right, there it is. Let me know your thoughts about it. I agree. Heresy is good. Heresy is fun. I enjoy the new activity. I enjoy the exotics that it brought. It's hard to be a tough critic on Heresy, considering if you like Destiny, you're going to enjoy Heresy where it's at right now, for the most part. Like, there's loot to chase for, there's fun builds right now, and it's probably going to age like milk, like all these seasons seem to do now. These seasons, or I should say episodes, but it feels like seasons still. And I think that's the part I maybe worry about. But for now, honestly, we'll leave that population dip for when we cross that bridge, if we cross that bridge. Because obviously, the nice part about Heresy is that even though it will begin to fall off in interest and popularity, there will be a point in Heresy where Bungie will have to start talking about Frontiers, right? Probably very soon, maybe in the next week or so. They're going to have to start talking about Frontiers, because Frontiers is meant to be us leaving the solar system, and that's meant to happen after Heresy. We're like 3 months away from leaving the solar system, and we haven't even heard about it yet. It could be getting delayed. That's what a lot of people are theorizing. But even if it is getting delayed, Bungie's going to have to talk about that, you know? If it doesn't get delayed, then it can carry the latter half of Heresy. The interest will come back where people want to play the game to get ready for the next big new thing, etc. So I think that Heresy is going to be, it's going to be all right. And I think that now is definitely a good time to come back and play some Destiny if you haven't played in a little bit. Let me know what you think down in the comments below if you have played some Heresy, though. That's a wrap on this one, though. Make sure to subscribe, smash the like button. I'll see you in the next one. Later.